Last week, we pulled on what I called like redemption threads that are woven throughout all of our stories, focusing on how God invites us to take steps into his, it just kind of cuts out there every now and then, take steps into his story, because it is his story. And we are taking steps in his story. And this week, because we're living outside the garden, because we're not in perfect relationship with God anymore, we see that God's invitation isn't the only invitations that we receive. You'll receive multiple similar invitations for every step in following Jesus, because we're offered imitation steps or alternative steps or easy answer steps or feel-good steps, or indulgent steps. But we're offered different steps than what Jesus asks us to step into. And what we don't often realize is that in those steps, there is a similarity between the truth and the lie. For deception to be effective, it will often include the truth, but it won't be fully true. And most often, it's the payoff at the end that was either oversold or underdelivered, wasn't it? Now, let's play a little game here just for a second here. See how well you may think you know me or not know me. We'll play a little game. 2 truths and a lie. I'll tell you 2 truths and a lie and see if you can figure out what is the truth and what is the lie. All right? Okay, number 1. My car, at one point in my life, my car broke down at a mosque I was visiting, and now I was stuck in the parking lot of this mosque, the only white guy in front of a whole bunch of other people that were coming and going, and my car was broken down in the lot of the mosque. That's 1. Number 2, I have been to or through Europe 10 times in my life. And number 3, my dad chipped my tooth here once when I was playing catch with my brother. Okay, so show of hands, how many people think the first one, the car broken down in the mosque parking lot, is not true? How many people think that's not true? All right, we got a couple here. All right, how many people think that I have not visited or gone through Europe 10 times? Put up your hand. Wow, you guys think I'm a homebody. Wow. All right. And then the third one, how many people think my dad did not chip my tooth while playing catch with my brother? All right, now here's the thing. All 3 of those are both true and lies. All right? I fooled you all on that one. I did have my car broken down in the parking lot of a religious building, but it was not a mosque. It was a Hindu temple. So I did go through Europe, but it wasn't 10 times, it was 9 times. I have gone through Europe or been to Europe, but it was only 9 times. And my dad didn't chip my tooth while I was playing catch with my brother, it was with my sister. So all three things are true, but also false. Don't you hate it when people do that? They do that, they get like, it was 99% true, but there was one little part of it that was untrue. Let me tell you, that's exactly what our enemy does. He gives you 99% of the truth, but enough false in it that it takes you away from what God's step for you was. It takes you just in a little bit off of a direction from where God had wanted you to go. And it's really like, it leaves you like you feel so empty after I told you all 3 of them were lies but truths. Don't you feel totally unsatisfied with the results of that game? Some of you were really hoping you had the right answer, right? Isn't that also how the lies end up in our lives? Everything that we had hoped that lie would give us has left us feeling truly unsatisfied with the results of what it gave us. It's like that amazing price for a car that you found. Total deal. That ended up being a lemon, even though it looked like a luxury vehicle that was for sale at an unbelievable price. That cost you way more in mechanics fees than it would have cost you if you paid a proper price for a good car. It all comes back to a promise for something sold as better than God's intention. that in the end only leads to death. And what does that affect in our lives? It affects our families. It affects our relationships, our identity, our sexuality, our finances. Literally every facet of our lives is affected by it. In each area, we have a choice to walk in the way of truth, life that God gives us, or a disordered version of that, where we believe the lie that our version of all things is better than God's version. And sadly, as we'll see in our story today, deception is a discovery most only see in hindsight. It's only when we look back that we find the lies that were woven together to pull us away that we bought into. Why? Because doing the right thing the wrong way is never okay. God is faithful to Abram. He has a son of promise in Isaac. And he also has a son in Esau, where he tried to fulfill that promise by his own means. And this would be a legacy that was passed on through Abraham. Again, with Esau, and then with Abraham lying and saying that Sarah was only his sister and not his wife on a technicality. Doing all those things, he would pass on a legacy to his family of deceit, of lying that would affect them deeply. The setup, again, for what we're looking at today in Genesis 27 begins a few chapters earlier as Isaac's wife, Rebekah, is pregnant with Esau and Jacob. And it wasn't an easy pregnancy at all. We read in chapter 25, it says this, "The children struggled together within her, and she said, 'If it is thus, why is this happening to me?' So she went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord said to her, 'Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger.'" And what we'll see there, what we'll come to know is that Jacob, who is the younger one by seconds, minutes, will be the one through whom God continues to fulfill his promise that he began with Abraham. And then the disordered desires take over. And ultimately we see a family that's full of favoritism, each parent for a specific son. Isaac, he loves Esau, his outdoorsy hunter, while Rebekah loves her quiet homebody. Think of it rather like this, 4x4 truck driving with a gun rack in the back type of guy. That guy versus the guy who owns and drives a Tesla and has a subscription to Audible. Maybe you like both. You have one of each in your driveway and that's how you live, and lucky you, you're the favorite kid. You're the perfect kid. But what this does is this sets the stage for family strife. Jacob most likely grew up hearing his mother's stories of how God spoke to her and told her what would happen between the two boys, about his special status. So much so that he takes advantage of Esau when Esau comes home from a hunting trip where he didn't find anything, wasn't able to kill anything. And he's famished and he's hungry, and he comes to Jacob, who is making some soup or stew, and he asks for some. And in that exchange, Esau sells his birthright to Jacob for a bowl of soup. It was something that birthright was something that Esau despised, maybe too because he heard those same stories. He heard how eventually it was to be that he was supposed to serve his brother Jacob. That double portion of wealth and responsibility for the family would be passed to Jacob. And as Isaac gets older, he does something that reveals a little bit of his character. We don't really know much about Isaac at all. It doesn't talk much about him. But we see something of his character a little bit later. Where am I here? There it is. Being older and losing his eyesight, he seemingly gives up on life. And it leads to a moment that I'm sure he wished he could take back his words. Because in a moment of time, haven't we all said something that we wish we could take back? We wish those words were on a rope and we could just pull them back like they never happened, or on a keyboard where we could just hit delete and act like it never existed. But the thing is with words and our actions too, they can be redeemed, but they can never be replaced. Once we say them and do them, they're always said and always done. Our words are extremely powerful. We can look in the book of James in the New Testament. It tells us so. But in our story, we can read this in Genesis 27, 1-4. When Isaac was old and his eyes were dim so that he could not see, he called Esau, his older son, and said to him, "My son." And he answered, "Here I am." And he said, "Behold, I am old, and I do not know the day of my death. Now then, take your weapons, your quiver, and your bow, and go out to the field and hunt some game for me, and prepare for me delicious food such as I love, and bring it to me that I may eat, that my soul may bless you before I die." Isaac, despite what was revealed to his wife Rebekah, wants to ensure that Esau, his favorite and the eldest, could take care of the family after his death, that he would inherit the larger portion. Now, this was normal in that day and age. This is how things happened. The eldest son would take responsibility. There was no lawyers involved. There's no will involved. There's no last testaments at this time. The way it worked was the father's last word being blessed over his children. And in that blessing that he would give, that would be the decree of what they would get. And in a religious and spiritual sense, it would be their heritage moving on through generations. Once spoken, it could not be taken back. The thing is, Isaac isn't actually dying. He's allowing his circumstances, his blindness, and his favoritism to dictate his reality. We'll see when we read in chapter 35, Isaac lives another 40 years. So this moment that he's taking right now to pass on this legacy to his children is presumptive and early, and he's caught up in things that are not really of God. And this story has 3 critical insights. 2 about humanity, and the most important about God. Number 1, humanity has always struggled with deception. Always struggled with deception. So in that, there's a call for us to be humble. To be humble in how we walk, how we talk, how we act. That it's so easy for us to fall into traps of deceiving others, even in small ways, to make ourselves look better. Number 2, there is no perfect families. None. No perfect families. Doesn't matter. You don't need to hide it. You don't need to be embarrassed about it, because we all have family history. We all have family drama. Why? Because we're in our families. We cause drama. We allow deception. We allow our inadequacies and our insecurities to play out in our families and cause the effects, just like we see in Isaac and Rebekah's family with their 2 boys. So be encouraged. Your family is not all that different than the families that God uses to redeem humanity. Your family is not so different than the families we see God working through in the Bible. And number 3, God is always at work healing what deception damages. So rejoice, be glad, be grateful that God is so graceful to work in us and through us, despite the fact that we do some of the things we do. Now in this family, Rebekah overhears Isaac speaking to Esau when he leaves to hunt for the meal to prepare for his father. And this is where deception surfaces, which has been the lurking problem. It's also right where things could have gone a different direction. It's right where things could have gone. Instead of going a different direction, instead of Rebekah going into the tent to Isaac and saying, Isaac, do you remember that prophetic word that God gave us before the boys were born about how the youngest would rule over the oldest? Do you remember that? Maybe we should figure out how that looks as we get older and pass this on. Is there something for us to do this well? Is there a way for us to do this well? What does she do? Does she do that? Not at all. She goes the opposite direction. She takes a totally different direction. Let's go and make up some stuff with my other son, my favorite son. Let's go make up some stuff to try to make this happen. While Esau is away, Jacob and Rebekah prepare a meal, and they dress Jacob up in Esau's clothing. They take the skin of a young goat and they put it over top of his skin because Esau was a hairy guy and Jacob was not. And so they try to convince this blind old man that Jacob is Esau. Deception preys on the vulnerable, costing the innocent dearly. In that same book of James that I spoke of earlier, it speaks of the power of our words, but it also says this: God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Now, humility is thinking of others more than yourself, thinking of yourself less than others. Therefore, deception grows greatest when humility is absent or deficient. The more we want to be seen in a certain light or as right, the more we will lie to protect it, to protect that image, to protect that position that we have. And pride will either show up as arrogance in us or some type of false humility. But in both, the temptation to lie, to deceive is there. A perception that too often gives birth to sin, just as it will for Jacob. Because we read this as we continue the story. So he went into his father and said, "My father." And he said, "Here I am. Who are you, my son?" Because he's kind of questioning what's going on here. Remember, for deception to be effective, it will include the truth, but it won't be fully true. Jacob says to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you have told me. Now sit up and eat my game, that your soul may bless me." But Isaac said to his son, "How is it that you have found it so quickly, my son?" And he answered, "Because the Lord your God granted me success." Sadly, just because God's name is spoken, it doesn't mean that God's truth is present. Isaac's eyesight is lost. His vulnerability in this moment is exploited. We can see the mixture of deception and truth in the next verses we'll read. Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Please come near that I may feel you, my son, to know whether or not you are really my son Esau or not." So Jacob went near to Isaac his father, who felt him and said, The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. And he did not recognize him, because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's hands. And so he blessed him. As it is today, it is in their day. Words spoken, they just can't merely be undone. In this story, we see another foreshadowing moment. We see betrayal in the form of a kiss. Because then his father Isaac said to him, "Come near and kiss me, my son." So he came near and kissed him. And Isaac smelled the smell of his garments and blessed him and said, "See, the smell of my son is as the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you the dew of heaven and of the fatness of the earth and plenty of grain and wine. Let peoples serve you and nations bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you." following that moment, as Jacob leaves, Esau returns. The deception is uncovered. Isaac's voice trembles violently. Esau is filled with anger, bitterness, and he cries in a profound cry. Esau said, "Is he not rightly named Jacob? For he has cheated me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and behold, now he has taken away my blessing." Then he said, "Have you not reserved a blessing for me?" Isaac answered and said to Esau, "Behold, I have made him lord over you, and all his brothers I have given to him for servants, and with grain and wine I have sustained him. What then can I do for you, my son?" Esau said to his father, "Have you but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father." And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. Then Isaac, his father, answered him and said, "Behold, away from the fatness of the earth shall your dwelling be, and away from the dew of heaven on high. By your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you shall break his yoke from your neck." Now Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing with which his father had blessed him. And Esau said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are approaching. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." Deception, when it surfaces, causes division in a family. So much so that Esau vows to kill his brother Jacob. No matter how Rebekah and Jacob saw things, doing the right thing the wrong way is never the right thing. We may be sitting here today and you may be thinking through your family line, thinking of moments when it may not have been a vow to kill somebody, but it was a vow to disown somebody. It was a vow to never talk to somebody again. It was a vow to see the demise of a family member or a person that you know because of how you had been deceived or cheated out of something. Know that doing the right thing the wrong way is never the right thing. Trying to resolve a situation, bring clarity, and get back what's yours the wrong way is never the right thing to do when it's the wrong way. Now, because of this, but undeterred by this, God is a covenant-keeping God. God is the God of Abraham, and then Isaac, and now Jacob. And where God is at work, even when the story is not good, he is still working. Deception, we can never diminish it because it causes real pain, deep consequences. But where we let God work, given time, and in their family it took around 30 years, he turns a story from murder to reconciliation. In Genesis 32 to 33, we see that story being told. In Genesis 32, Jacob is no longer a deceiver. His name is now Israel. In Genesis 33, Israel is wrapped with fear as he encounters Esau going back to his homeland. But Esau is no longer bent on murder, but on forgiveness. God's goodness to Esau has transformed his heart. As we read in chapter 33, "And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau was coming, and 400 men with him. And so he divided the children among Leah and Rachel and the 2 female servants. And he put the servants with their children in front, then Leah with her children, and Rachel and Joseph last of all. And he himself went on before them, bowing himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. But Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. And there he erected an altar and called it El Elohe Israel. El Elohe Israel means God of Israel. Where the enemy used deception as a tool for destruction, God is at work and redeems it as a story of building and of blessing. Doing the right thing the wrong way always leads to the long way to the right path. Today, in our following of Jesus, we too can be deceived into trying to do the right thing the wrong way. And that deception will affect our families, our relationships, our identities, our sexuality, our finances, literally every facet of our lives. In either arrogance or false humility, we deceive ourselves into thinking that if we can't see the path clearly or walk the path easily, then we need to take things into our own hands. Today, have you ever tried to accomplish on your own something that God said he would do? Have you ever stepped up and tried to manufacture what you knew God was planning to do? I know every time I've attempted to do that, it has either derailed that plan or delayed that plan in my life. And I'm sure you can attest to that as well. Today, as you take a moment to examine yourself, allow Holy Spirit to bring to mind where you may be settling for half-truths rather than the way, the truth, and the life found in Christ, in whom we should be found. I have 4 questions for you as we close. Number 1, what has God spoken to you that you have taken into your own hands? What has God spoken to you that you have taken into your own hands? Has God spoken a promise? Has he spoken a future? Has he spoken healing over you that you are starting to take into your own hands and trying to make it happen on your own? Number 2, what image do you try to maintain through deception? Are you using deception, deceit, lies to have a front that other people can see that isn't the real you, that isn't truly where you are? Are you allowing pride or arrogance or false humility to put something in front of you so that people can't see the true you? Number 3, what family legacy are you leaving potentially through deception and pride? When you think of your family and how you interact with siblings, parents, children, grandchildren, extended family, are you walking in the way, the truth, and the life of Jesus in your interactions with them? Or have you allowed deception and pride? Number 4, what would it look like for you to allow God to redeem where you are now? To lay down all those pretenses, to let go of any deception, to acknowledge that you've taken things into your own hands rather than allowing him to lead you, guide you, to be your source. What would it look like for you just to lay it all down and let God redeem your story? Will you let him do that today? And today, if you've never responded to the call of Jesus, if you've never responded to him when he says, come and follow me, would you respond to that call today? Would you choose to walk in the way and the truth and the life that is found in Jesus? To walk away from deception, that there is life outside of God? Let's pray. God, we thank you that you are the way, the truth, and the life. That we enter into relationship with God only through you, Jesus. And you call us to walk in those ways as well. To not allow deception and lie to take us away to places that we don't want to go. To not buy into the temptation to believe those things. That the solutions that we get from them are the right thing to do. God, may we truly live knowing that the right thing done the wrong way is never okay. May we truly live depending on you, your truth, and your ways to do things. May you bring healing to our families where lies, deception, hurt, and pain has broken things. God, may you allow us to walk in the freedom of who we truly are in you, not trying to put a front for others, to live in lies and deception, but rather allow you to form us into who you want us to be. Allow you to prepare the way before us and trust you that you are the way, the truth, and the life. And that we don't need to resolve those things or create those things. You do it in your strength, in your time, in your way for us. God, may we deepen our trust in you and your ways today. We pray this in your name, Jesus.